Eating healthy without any form of awareness is like trying to save money without knowing how much you're spending. Today, I want to talk about the basics, but probably not in the way that you think. Because what I see a lot of is women doing all the right things on paper, but they still don't see the right results that they are after. Now, it's not because you're lazy. It's not because you're not trying hard enough. It's because you are focusing on things that just feel productive, right? You aren't actually moving the needle. You're just going in and taking off a training session. That's what we're doing. The hard truth here is that effort doesn't always equal results if it's directed at the wrong type of thing. So today I'm going to be breaking down all the things that people think are the basics that they need to be focusing on, but these might be what's actually holding you back. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to bring it back to what actually works. So the first thing that I always hear is, I'm eating healthy, but I'm not seeing results. And honestly, this is probably one of the most common things that I hear when I'm chatting to people in my DMs, when I'm doing consult calls with people. And the reality is that eating healthy and the word healthy is so subjective because healthy doesn't actually tell us how much you're eating, whether you're hitting protein, whether you're hitting fiber, whether you're in a calorie deficit or if you're in a surplus or if you're hitting maintenance calories. You can eat all the whole foods and still be overeating. You can be eating the cleanest possibly, but be underfueling you. Okay. Eating healthy without any form of awareness is like trying to save money without knowing how much you're spending. And I know for a fact, like, yes, there are people out there in the world who turn a blind eye to what they are spending. But the reality is if you don't know what's incoming and what's outgoing, you're probably not sitting in a too pretty picture when it comes to like your financial status. And that is the same thing when it comes to your nutrition. Okay. And this is where the likes of intuitive eating gets really misunderstood. It's not just eat whatever you feel like, where it's kind of been portrayed that way. There's actually skill behind intuitive eating, and it requires body awareness, nutritional literacy, and understanding your hunger cues versus emotional cues, because they're two different things. And without having a foundation here, it's not actually intuition, it's guessing. And we don't create predictable outcomes by just guessing, right? Like what gets measured gets managed. And then tracking in some form gives you that awareness. Tracking does not have to be forever. It is a tool. It does not have to be obsessive in any way, shape, or form. But what it does teach you is it actually teaches you portion sizes. It actually teaches you decent protein intake. It teaches you how different foods impact your hunger and your overall energy levels. This is something that I really do encourage, especially if you are a beginner as well, and that is being repetitive with what you're doing. So that's eating similar meals day to day, not because you have to, but because it actually removes that decision fatigue. And you cannot tell me that you do not repeat the same types of things. If you are a coffee drinker or a tea drinker, you are repeating the same thing. So whenever someone comes to me and they're like, this is boring, meal prep's boring, it's not. You're overcomplicating it because you are then consuming fancy recipes online and you think that you have to be eating fancy recipes. There is nothing wrong with a boring meal, especially when you're in a learning phase. It makes things easier. It makes things consistent for you and actually helps you learn so much faster than what you think it will. Because when your meals are consistent, you can actually start to understand what's working for your body, what keeps you full, what helps then support your body overall when it comes to your training, instead of constantly guessing, which is what ends up happening. Now, even for me, there are periods where I keep my meals really similar, especially when I'm busy. I remove that decision fatigue there, right? I remove that decision because it just makes things so much easier and I stay consistent. But once you've built that foundation, you can then add in some more variety. Now, simplicity builds skill. Variety then comes later. So once you've kind of practiced all of this, then you can start making fancier recipes, or you'll be able to view a recipe online that looks really good and you'll be like, oh, okay, that's protein, that's carbs, that's fats. I just need to alter X, Y, and Z to make it meet what I want to consume calorie and macro wise. Simple. Instead of looking at a recipe or looking at someone who intuitively eats online and getting overwhelmed with all of the information out there, you actually build the skill. You will then be able to move towards more of an intuitive type eating. You don't want to start there. Okay. It's like you taking your training wheels off your bike and not spending that moment of learning how to balance properly on your bike. You don't graduate to intuition by skipping the learning phase. Now, the next one that I want to talk about is movement. I feel like in a society where sittings the new smoking, right? Like we are always sat these days, and it's almost like we've tried to promote exercise and movement so much more that it's swung the other way now. Yes, I am all for people moving and things like that. And movement is always better than nothing and staying stagnant and just living a very sedentary life. But not all movement creates the same outcome. There's walking, Pilates, you've got group classes. They all have their value. And I'm definitely not discrediting anything here, but they do not replace strength training or resistance training. Strength training is what helps build muscle. It helps protect your bone density. It helps support your metabolism and it helps shape your physique. And this becomes super important, especially as you age, especially for women, because as we get older, particularly around the menopausal age, we start to see a natural decline in bone density. And actually, as soon as you hit over the age of like 30, everything starts to decline for females. Once we lose all of that muscle and that bone density, it is so hard to get it back when you're in those age brackets. So if you're not lifting weight for the body that you have now, at least lift for the body that you're going to live in later, like later on in life. That's so important. If you're not focusing on that, you need to focus on who you are going to be in the years to come. And that's why you want to be lifting. The whole Pilates body conversation, I hear this so much. I want to have a Pilates body. I want to look like that long, lean muscle. That's not actually a thing. Okay. It is not actually a thing. Pilates, yes, can absolutely support your training. I'm not discrediting that whatsoever. It's genetics, though, that you're looking at when you're comparing someone's physique to what they do training style wise. It can improve mobility. It can improve stability, and it definitely can help that mind muscle connection. I have done my fair share of doing Pilates as well. But if your goal is body composition and strength and long-term health, resistance training needs to be your priority. It has to be. It absolutely has to be your priority. I still incorporate things like Pilates or low intensity type movements like yoga, but it always complements my strength training. It's not instead of it. It doesn't replace it. Now, movement is good, okay? I'm all for movement and I'll always preach what you like, you need to do. But specific stimulus is what then creates change overall. I have touched on this a couple of times already within my podcast, but it's still massive. And this is why I keep talking about it. But it's random workouts. Social media has made workouts look so exciting. New exercises, new formats, new challenges, constantly switching things up. And while that can keep things interesting mentally for you, it's actually one of the biggest reasons why people aren't seeing progress, because progress does not come from novelty. It comes from progression, and your body adapts when you give it a reason to. And that reason is progressive overload. Now, when we think about what progressive overload means, it just means like a little bit more over time. So it could look like lifting heavier, doing more reps, improving your technique, so your form, slowing down your control and focusing on things like tempo, or even just showing up more consistently. That's a huge one that people miss. It doesn't have to be dramatic at all. You don't have to be going from like 5 kilo weights to then 100. It just has to be progressive, because your body will not respond to random workouts. It's responding to repeated stimulus that gradually increases over time. So if you're constantly changing everything and you remove your ability to track things, how are you going to know if you're getting stronger, if your lifts are improving, if your body is actually adapting to what's going on? Because if you can't measure it, you cannot progress with it. And I remember this being such a thing way back in the day, is that it was like, you need to shock your muscles. You don't. You do not need to shock your muscles. They don't need to be confused, shocked, whatever. You just need consistency. The muscles need a clear signal overall, and they need enough time under tension to actually signal and adapt to that. So your body's not confused, your approach to what your training is. So changing every exercises, every session, doing random circuits, chasing that sweat vibe and really pushing here. It may feel hard and you may feel like you've done a really good job. It just doesn't always mean that it's effective. So feeling wrecked after a workout isn't a sign that things have worked and that you're making progress here. It's just a sign that it was hard. Now, even with my own training, I'm not constantly changing things. I'm focusing on getting better at the same things, the same movements over time. I have been doing this so long, and I'm still tweaking my technique. I'm still learning things as I go. It's not the goal to change your workout every single time. The goal is to do something slightly better than what it was last time. So that's how strength builds. That's how muscle builds. And this is actually how results happen. So structure doesn't make training boring at all. It makes it effective. And if you are just going in, doing a workout and ticking a box, and you're not reviewing what your data was like last time, if you've been working with a coach and they've given you training feedback to what your movements were last time, you're doing yourself a disservice by not reviewing that and going into your training session with some form of intention. You don't need a new workout. You need to get better at the one that you're already doing. Facts. Now, waiting for motivation. This is another one that I see all the time. And it's probably one of the biggest mindset blocks, waiting to feel motivated. I can tell you now, you are going to be waiting for a very long time if this is what you're waiting for, because motivation is a feeling and feelings fluctuate. If you only act when you feel motivated, you are going to be so inconsistent. And the real people who get results, they don't rely on motivation. They're actually relying on systems. Okay. So that's scheduled workouts, that's their routines, that structure within their week. Because when something is scheduled into your daily or weekly schedule, it removes that question out of your mind, and there will be no longer the shoulds and the shouldn'ts. You don't need more motivation here. You just need fewer decisions. So again, take that decision fatigue out of it. You don't need it. Just make the decision originally that I'm going to go train at 6 o'clock in the morning, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. It removes the whole decision out of it. Done. We do just want to focus on habits as well, because a system gives you structure, but habits are what makes that system automatic overall. And a lot of people you will hear say, I just need to be more disciplined. But discipline isn't something that you switch on and off. It's something that you actually build through small, repeatable actions. So instead of trying to overhaul your whole life, I'm starting on Monday with my diet, my training, sleep, work, all of that type of stuff. It's not going to work. It's going to be way too overwhelming. So you focus on habits that are actually going to stick, that you can do long term, even on the most busiest day. So if the habit is too big, you're not going to do it. So we want to simplify it, tie it into something that you already do, anchor it into something. You will hear me say that on my social media all the time, and my clients probably hear me say it all the time too. Anchor, anchor, anchor. Now, even for me, I anchor into things like tracking my food whilst I'm sitting on the couch at night, or I'll prep my food straight away as soon as I've done my grocery shop and I start unpacking things. Because if I don't attach it to something else, or if I don't anchor it into something that I already do, it just doesn't happen. So that's why tracking your food when you sit down on the couch at night, you're normally going to be on your phone. So just spend 5 to 10 minutes and copy and paste all your meals over to the next day. Easy, done. Don't even have to think about it. It's 5 minutes, right? We also want to make sure that these things are realistic as well. Not for your ideal life and the person that you want to become, but your actual current life. So there are weeks where my life looks different as well. I have a partner who is FIFO. I run my own business. There's always things that I have to swap and change. But instead of trying to force this perfect plan, I just bring it back to what I actually can stick to. Because the best plan isn't the perfect one or for the perfect life. It's for the one that you can actually stick to. And when people try to change everything at once, they then come back and blame themselves when it just didn't stick. But really, it's because their system just was not sustainable for them. And if your plan is only working when you are motivated, it's not a good plan. So I used to do this all the time. I would always swap training for work. This was years ago. I would never do that with anything else that was locked in, though. That was when I realized it just couldn't be an option anymore because I was always negotiating that with myself because the gym was 24-hour access, right? I could go whenever I wanted. But the moment that I stopped negotiating with myself around training and work was the moment that I just changed everything because I stopped treating it as an option. The things that you treat as an option will always be inconsistent. It was a non-negotiable, and training should be a non-negotiable in everyone's life. Movement should be a non-negotiable. There's also this 1 hour mentality as well. You train for 1 hour, but what about the rest of the 23 hours that you have in your day? If you're already sedentary for the rest of your day, it really matters. So your total daily movement plays a huge role in progress and just overall health. Now, it's not focusing on being perfect here at all. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is progression, okay? We need to be conscious of the fact that, like, yes, you've trained for an hour, but we still want to be moving within the rest of the day. I am locked in, especially on busy days. I make sure that I am still moving outside of my training, whether that's going for a walk with the dogs, or that might be just getting up and going, making a cup of tea, making sure I'm getting up and just going for a little bit of a walk, standing outside, getting some sunshine on my face, having a cuddle with the dogs. But I'm getting up and moving from my desk. I'm getting up and moving around because you can't do 1 hour of training and then completely sit down. It's just not good overall for like your body, mobility. You've got to think about your mental health too. So your results are actually built in the hours that you're not in the gym because we also then want to be focusing on active recovery too. That's a whole nother episode for you. But we want to bring things back to what are the actual basics that we do want to be focusing on. And that's strength training with progressive overload. So whether that's through working on your form, progressing with weights, reps, sets, increasing that, we want to be focusing on that. We've then got protein intake. If you are still skimping on your protein intake and you are training, you're missing out, right? You're missing out. We don't want to not understand where our food is and what's going on with it. And I am going to say just overall macros and calories in general. If you are guessing, you're not going to get the results that you want. It's also sleep. Sleep is huge, and I mean good quality sleep. For females, we need to be having at least 7.5. I'm going to say that even 9 hours a night. And I know this is all contextual. You need to take it as you can throughout your life because we all know that we go through so many seasons of life, and sometimes just getting that decent amount of sleep per night is not always going to happen because of children, etc. But you do need to try and have at least 7.5 hours to 8 to 9 hours worth of sleep a night. And this is super important for mental health and for physical health as well. You then also want to be focusing on daily movement, making sure that if you are an office worker or just sitting down all day in general, you need to be moving. You need to be getting up and at least going for a 10-minute walk. Get up, move, go do some movement snacks throughout the day, whether that's getting up and going outside and patting the dogs, making a cup of tea, something, right? Something is always better than nothing because we need to make sure that we are complementing that hour worth of training that we have done. And then we also want to be focusing on consistency. Now, consistency looks completely different for everyone, but the biggest thing here is that you don't want to be overhauling your life. You want to be focusing on the systems and habits that work for your life currently and the ones that you can show up and do, even on the days where you are so busy, you have low motivation, and life just isn't necessarily going swimmingly. Those are the habits and systems that you want to be sticking to. That's the structure that you want to be sticking to because that's the consistency. It's just anchoring into those lower motivation habits and systems that you can do. Now, the basics work. People just aren't doing these long enough. It's not a shiny exercise that you need to do. It's not a shiny workout that you need to do to get the results that you're after or the recipe. It's the basic things. I'm going to say it's definitely not that anyone's not capable because you all are. It's just that we're focused on the wrong things. And I know this, I have been there as well. I spent so long chasing the perfect recipe, chasing the perfect workout. You can have the perfect plan, you can have all of that. But if you aren't doing all of these little bits and pieces, it's just not going to work. So you don't need a better plan, you need a better adherence to the right one that works for your life.